Hi, ladies, and welcome to Inspiring Women podcast. My name is Raimonda, and I am going to be hosting today's guest. So today I am super honored to have our member, Maureen Chiana. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Raimonda. I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm excited to be hosting you today too, Maureen. And I know we have a topic on our hands today that we have never covered before within our podcast or our community. So I'm excited to be exploring it a little bit more, talking about emotional intelligence and just how important it is for us female entrepreneurs to have that in business. So I just want to give a quick introduction of Maureen. So Maureen Chiana is Neuroleadership and Resilience trainer, speaker, and business consultant. She leverages on brain science insights of how the brain works to empower executives, leaders, and educators to unlock potential, maximize performance, accelerate and embed new behaviors to enable them to create a highly successful business, a team, and lifestyle effortlessly. Maureen's expertise is in a behavioral change using the latest findings from neuroscience to help people improve their quality of thinking to achieve sustainable success. So Maureen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I would love to find out from you how you began on this journey in neuroscience and neuroleadership as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting story because I literally fell into it. What happened is that I started off my career as a biomedical scientist, and I'd worked in research for a few years. And then after a few businesses, because I always refer to myself as a serial entrepreneur, so I had done a few things. But my biggest, I would say, venture was when I opened the first Afro and European hair and beauty salon in Kent, where I live in the UK. And for me, it was a massive jump because it was a business, there was a niche, and I opened it, and it was amazing. It was a fantastic business, got a lot of publicity. But 4 years down the line, I had to sell the business, but I sold it for a huge loss and lost a lot of money. So at that time, it was such a low period for me. I was at my lowest because it was 1 minute I was almost at the top of a mountain, and the next, it felt as if I was at the bottom of a valley and really dark. And I just did not know how to get out. And that's when my research brain kicked back in, and I started asking the question, why am I feeling this way? Okay, Joanna, why am I feeling a failure? How do people get out of a very dark place? What do I do? And then I lost my mom almost 3 months after I closed the business. So it was just a lot of emotions. And it was from these questions that I stumbled against neuroscience. I had done biology, I had done anatomy. Neuroscience was something that you kind of touch on a bit at uni, but this time it opened up a whole new aspect for me in terms of how the brain works and how when you take back control, it changes everything. And that was how I got from that place of, real darkness to where I am today, able to really now help other people, get out of a really dark place or help people actually move forward in business. So that's really how I started.
Amazing. And how long you have been doing this for now?
I've been doing this now for 11 years. I actually started off doing it quite slowly. It was more to test the waters and see if it actually worked. So I started off giving a bit of talks here and there to organizations. But I think the biggest eye-opener for me was when I went back into management in education in a college. And we decided to work with students and teachers. And I found that once they understood how that they could control their brains, it literally changed everything. So underperforming departments started performing exceptionally well. And now using it with organizations, I find that people can just move from a very low place to achieving great success.
Yeah, so my question was just going to be about that as well. what is the biggest transformation that people experience as a result of such coaching and, understanding their brains a little bit more? What is that transformation that happens in the process?
I think, I'll call it more freedom and liberation, because once you understand what's going on in your brain, you see, because every decision we make is based on our thoughts, it's based on what we're thinking, it's based on the experiences we've had, it's based on a lot of things that are inside our subconscious: values, beliefs, cultural background, upbringing, things that we've heard. The interesting thing is, a lot of things that are inside their subconscious brain we are not even aware of.
Yeah.
So it's really being able to now understand why you're behaving the way you are. Why are you self-sabotaging? Why are you procrastinating? Why are you feeling so anxious? Why is it that you know you want to do something, but you find that you're not doing it? So for me, it's just really being able to understand exactly what's going on. And I'll use a typical example. You have a car, and each time you walk past the car, and you don't, go and jump on the bus. So what it is like getting the key to your car, opening the door, and taking the steering and driving the car. So that's really the best way to explain it.
Yeah, wow, it's powerful. So, for someone who perhaps never discovered the topic of emotional intelligence, how do they start to build that self-awareness and build their emotional intelligence?
You see, emotional intelligence, it's usually, the simple definition is you being able to control your emotions, but also help other people control theirs.
Yeah.
So the first thing is to be able to understand that understand what is causing the emotions that you're having. The way the brain works, I'll use this as an example. I've got a brain here. I always take this around with me because it's so much easier to use it to explain. Because what happens inside the brain is that the emotional center is right deep inside the brain. And when the emotional center is activated, what it does is suppresses the frontal part of the brain, which is our thinking brain. So when you find that you want to make a decision, but you can't because you're stressed, you're anxious, or you're going through different types of emotion. So the first thing to do is ask yourself, what am I thinking? What story am I telling myself? For example, you in the visibility thing we've been doing inside the club, getting visibility, one of the things that you talked about was money mindset. A
Mm.
lot of people are so worried about how to deal with money. So a lot of people are not succeeding as much as they should because they're being limited by their mindset about money. And it all comes down to what's inside the brain. So first of all is asking yourself, or identifying, what am I thinking? What do I believe in? What is actually in the subconscious brain? Because that's the way you can start rewiring it or changing it. I call the changing is rewiring, because what you're doing literally is rewiring the neural pathways that you already have inside the brain.
Wow, and these patterns it really stems from what?
So when you look at when a baby is born, for example, if you look at the brain of a newborn baby, what you have are neurons. Neurons are really what happens when we have a thought. So you have the neurons connecting together, and that's called a pathway. So one neuron leading to another is a neural pathway. So when you look at the brain of a child, you find that these neural pathways are all standing individually. But if you look at the brain of a 2-year-old or even 6-month-old, you start seeing the connections being formed. So what happens is that when a child is born, they're observing their parents, they're observing things in their environment, and it's all going into the subconscious brain, deep inside the brain. And the brain is literally as a sponge, sucking up everything in the environment. And even as adults, you find that you're listening to the news, you're listening to people, and you're literally taking things in. So a lot of these things that when we behave, we're behaving from what's inside us. Some of it taken unconsciously, but most taken in unconsciously. And they end up forming your beliefs, your values, things that you've heard, things that you've heard people say. And I'll give one quick example. I can't swim, but my children have been going for swimming lessons since they were 4 months old, sorry. And I always say that, see, blacks don't swim. We don't do water, we do land. That could be because of the food we eat. Our food is so heavy that when we get into the pool, we sink. As a joke, but the fact is I couldn't swim, and it's something I was always saying. And my son, who is a very good athlete, he does rugby, he does football, he had a swimming gala at school and asked me to give him a sick note. And I didn't understand why. I said, why? I said, because his leg hurts. And I knew his leg didn't hurt. So why don't you want to go to school? Then his brother said to me that there's a swimming gala on. And that's when it dawned on me that what I had been saying, even though we hadn't discussed it, had gone into his subconscious. And as far as he's concerned, he couldn't swim. So when he gets into the pool, he literally struggles. And there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to swim. So what we say really ends up becoming our behavior. And that's why I focus a lot on that, understanding what is there so that we can then change the behavior.
Wow, beautiful. What a lovely example of, coming back to your family and just sometimes the things that we say, without giving it too much thought, and just how it all affects everyone else around us.
Exactly, absolutely.
We talked a little bit more about emotional intelligence and relationships. And I just wanted to find out, how does emotional intelligence really impact us in forming better relationships with our clients, with our colleagues, and those around us?
Okay. Now, one of the things about emotions is that it comes from things we hear, things we say. So when you're interacting with somebody else, the question is, how are they perceiving you? What you're saying, what impact is it having on them? Because one thing about the way the brain works is that people will remember how you made them feel more than what you actually say to them. So most times we focus on the verbal, but what is most important is actually the emotion attached to what you're saying or how you're feeling, the nonverbal language. Yeah. So it's so important that when you're interacting with people, that you show them that you're interested in them, because the brain loves being, the brain loves being nurtured. That's a better way to put it. And it likes connection. The brain loves connection. That's why during this lockdown, it was a big struggle for a lot of people, because the brain doesn't like loneliness. It likes the connection of people. And when people are connecting, there are hormones that are released to create a big impact, to create that connection with people. So when you're interacting with, or you interacting with clients or potential clients, it's so important how you talk to them, what's the communication that is going on, but most importantly, how much you show you care and how much listening that you're doing. When they're talking, are you getting ready to say what you want to say and not really listening to them? So it's so important that they know that you're listening to them, because then once they know you care, then what you're doing is forming a connection with them, because it's that connection that will make them trust you. Because people will buy from people that they feel cares about them more than people that they know just want to sell. And especially in this environment, most times people are going, okay, what is it that they want to sell to me? But when you show that you care, first and foremost, you've got them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've written a blog post for us which expands a little bit more on developing your emotional intelligence and the areas that we can focus more on improving, which in turn will improve our relationships as well. So ladies, do make sure you go and check out the blog post written by Maureen on our website at womeninbusiness.club. I want to dig a little bit deeper on leadership, because leadership is one of the areas that you have been working with your clients and doing a lot of coaching in this area. And I want to find out from you what makes a good leader and how should we as female entrepreneurs should be acting right now, especially during this pandemic and difficult times. How should be showing up as leaders in our communities?
Okay, leadership is an interesting one because a lot of people still, even people in business, still don't identify themselves as leaders, which is interesting. And leadership is really anyone that is in control or managing or influencing other people in any form or in any shape or form. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a leader. So if you're not leading, I always tell people, even if you're not leading any team or anyone, you're leading yourself. So every single person is a leader. And to be a great leader, it takes really being able to understand yourself and also be able to influence other people. And I don't mean influence in a negative way, but influence them in a positive way, either from, because when you want to help someone, or rather, even when you want to sell, your first thought process should be, how can I help the person? So a true leadership is really being authentic to yourself, but also being a serving leader. So where you're actually serving people, because when you're serving, the mindset changes completely from what can I get from you? It now becomes, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And I think having that is the first thing to be a great leader, because then you're coming from a place of care, a place of concern, more, first, before it then becomes, what can I get? How can I sell to you? Which is something I think I talked about in a podcast that I did, where a lot of times in networking meetings, I have a feeling it's on that blog actually that I wrote it. In networking meetings, you find people so hurrying to actually introduce themselves, talk about what they do, but are you listening to the other person? Because a true leader, first and foremost, wants to know what pain that person is going through.
Yeah.
Because then, and the fact is that even as an entrepreneur, then you find that when you listen to them, the more they say, the more you can then see what you can do for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key of being a great leader.
Beautiful. And I think empathy, both in business and in life and also leadership, is so important because as leaders, we are, people do look up to us, people do follow us, or, we make an impact.
Yes.
And with that, it's so important to be empathetic or just feel empathy for other people. And that is the best way to lead, when you actually take into consideration other people's experiences and feelings and emotions, and you're able to understand. And I think emotional intelligence and self-awareness is probably the first step really in being a good leader, because then if you're self-aware, then you're able to empathize with other people and their experiences as well.
And you find that once you can empathize with other people, it actually helps your own motivation as well. And the fact is, the places in the brain that deals with empathy is very close to the place that deals with motivation. So you find that as you're caring about people, it actually gives it, it releases hormones in your brain that then keep you active, that keep you more eager to keep pushing ahead. So it actually helps motivation greatly, which will then help you achieve success in your own business.
Yeah, that's just the next question I was going to ask you
Oh
on
gosh.
self-motivation. So you're right on track. So what influences our motivation? What can we do to, to stay motivated throughout?
Yeah, I think motivation is it has to come from within. It has to come from you. And there's so many facets to motivation. The one I've just mentioned, which talks of, which links with empathy, but also in terms of what you're doing, and that's why I like how you started what we're doing in the club at the moment in terms of having visibility, because self-awareness is the first key. Once you understand yourself and start asking the questions, why am I doing what I'm doing? And then we then went on to even looking at how you approach people, or what impression do you want people to have, or how do you introduce yourself, it actually makes us then go back to thinking, why am I doing this? Because it's, if what you're doing is not coming from a place of passion within you, it will be a struggle for the brain. So when you're doing what you're passionate about, when you're doing something that you know has a purpose that is meaningful, it then enables you to be more motivated to keep pushing through.
Yeah.
Because you see, motivation can't come from it can't come from external influences. It's really from inside. And I think that's the key, to first and foremost find out the reason. The reason for doing what you're doing has to be meaningful, and then you can then keep pushing forward. And the self-awareness will keep you motivated, because you discover when you start lacking motivation, then the key is to start asking yourself that question: why am I not motivated? What is going on? And then you can start looking at examining your thoughts, and then bringing yourself back on track to keep yourself going. Yeah. But also knowing where you want to get to is so important. Yeah. So what's your goal? Because if you don't have a goal, then motivation can wane. But once you have an endpoint, you know where you're going, then it will help you to stay on track, to stay motivated to achieve that goal.
Beautiful. I can totally relate with that. And I think everything that has been going on around us in the world, and you know, the pandemic, I think over time when motivation started to really drop, because there isn't much to look forward to from day to day. There isn't, you know, an opportunity to get out or meet friends, or, you know, any prospect of going on holidays, or, you know, just so many different aspects that can dampen our motivation. I started to feel like this. And the moment when I started to show up for my members from our community, and I started to serve them and care for them, and give, that is when I found motivation again. Because as you say, you know, I was being empathetic, and I was leading them, and I was doing something because I really care about them, and seeing the results has just, you know, transformed every single feeling inside of me, to feel like, you know what, I am doing the right thing. I am showing up because I care, because it matters to me. A lot of times we can lose that balance and lose our foothold, and be like, I don't know, is this making impact? Does this even matter what I'm doing? And that's when you start to feel unmotivated and unfulfilled in what you're doing.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And you mentioned the word reward. Once you started, you felt rewarded. And that's the key, because the brain has two things. It's either moving towards something that rewards it, or I would say it's moving away from something that is a threat. So when you're doing things and you find that people are appreciating it, then the brain feels rewarded. And when it feels rewarded, then you start feeling motivated to keep going. But if it's something, like you said, in the lockdown and all that, once you start focusing on the negatives, the brain then perceives it as a threat. And what it starts doing is shutting you down. It's moving you away from it. So you start feeling low. You start feeling despondent. You start feeling, is this really worth it? Am I even doing the right thing? You know, and the negatives just start spiraling out of control. Yeah. So the key is the reward. And that's why once you start doing things, reward yourself as well. You know, so once you reach a milestone, reward yourself for doing that. Oh, I've achieved this. I'm going to do something good to make myself happy. And the brain is triggered, and then you keep going.
Beautiful. So I'd love to find out from you. You have been a member of our community for a little while, and I just wanted for you to share your experience of what it has been like to be part of the Women in Business Club.
Oh, wow. For me, it's been a massive experience. And I'll confess, I actually registered a while ago and didn't use it. But then suddenly I went, what am I doing? I need to really get the benefits from the club. And I think what you do is just amazing. For me personally, what it has done is got me back into, you know, having a kind of process for what I'm doing. Because before I was doing things the way, kind of just doing them. But now I kind of feel that I've got a structure of where I'm going and why I'm doing it. But also the community of women is just amazing. And I've learned so much from what people are doing. I'll give an example and I'll make a confession. Even the SWOT analysis, I've done it so many times. I know it's one of these things you look at and go, do I really need to do this? But then in the community, I saw people showing all the details that they've done. And I'm going, what am I doing? I've come back and then by the time I started reviewing it, life changes, things change. And I realized that things had actually changed for me. And it was a good thing to do it because then I could see some weak things that were not a weakness before are now a weakness. So now I knew that, okay, I needed to deal with these new issues here. So I think as a community, it's amazing, and for me, another thing is the marketing. All your marketing tips are just fantastic. The videos I go to bed with my headphones on now. So no, it's great. So anyone that is still on the fence thinking if this is worth doing, honestly, I've been in business for so many years and I'm telling you, I learn something every single day. So it's really worth joining. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you got stuck in after a little while of
Yeah.
and it's like this for all of us. And thank you for sharing your, true honest experience of it, because sometimes, and I wrote a post recently, that we have opportunities at our front door, sometimes even knocking on our door, and we don't take it because we don't see it as opportunity. We think, oh, we've got so many other things to do. But sometimes you really need to take that time to invest in yourself and give yourself the opportunity to reflect. And like you say, even something as simple as SWOT analysis. Those are the things that it's the first thing people teach in business school.
Yeah.
And so many people, when they start their businesses, they never even look at it. And it's powerful. It's just something so simple, but so powerful, and it always changes and evolves because sometimes your weaknesses turns into strengths. And, sometimes your new weaknesses or new threats or new opportunities come along, which, you can keep reviewing it every so often. So thank you for sharing that.
No, it's been great. It really has. It's been pleasant.
I would love to, just to wrap this up, I would love to ask you three key tips that you would love to give to somebody who perhaps just starting out either in business or in coaching right now.
I think the first thing I would say is mindset. Look at, find out what your mindset is around even setting up a business, because it's so easy to set up a business, but if you have the wrong mindset, you will hit a brick wall quite quickly.
Yeah.
The second thing is don't do it alone, because running a business can be a very lonely place to be. So it's really important to be in a community of people. And for me, that is one of the reasons why I joined the Women in Business Club. You need to be with other people because you learn from others. And another thing I'll say is if you're thinking of going into business, do it. Look at what you want to do. But first of all, make sure you do your research very well. Make sure you've got you've got the right market. You know what it's the people that you want to sell to. In fact, you know what I'll say to you is join this club, because we're doing all this now. So if you really want to get into business, instead of doing trial and error, join us and learn so much from it. But in terms of your emotions, you need to really learn how to manage your emotions, because running a business, emotions will always be up and down. And I've just explained the impact it has on decision making, on relationships you make, on clients that you can make. It has an impact on everything. So that is the key thing.
Yeah, hugely, hugely. And I totally agree with you. So Maureen, if ladies wanted to follow up with you, especially for those who may be listening on our podcast, I would love to find out, how can ladies connect with you thereafter?
Okay, I've got a few places. My website is maureenchiana.com, and I've got so much information on the website, everything I do and about me as well. I've also got an online academy. We have got courses, online courses, and it's called the Mindsight Academy. So Mindsight, as in looking inside the mind, academy.com. And I also have a podcast, which is Lead to Excel podcast.
Wow.
You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook as well.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Maureen, for sharing your insights today and hopefully impacting many, many lives with your message, with your knowledge and expertise. And ladies, do make sure you check out Maureen's podcast, and obviously her links will be available in the podcast notes or in the post for this podcast. So thank you so much, Maureen, and we look forward to seeing you all within the Members Club.
Thank you so much, Raimonda. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.